Hello and welcome to the Golden Thumb Rule, your go-to podcast where we decode smart money moves with India's leading financial voices. Well, I'm your host, Shweta Janand, and today we are diving deep into a question that's on everyone's mind. Can I really retire with, let's say, a 5 crore just by investing through SIPs? Well, to help us unpack this, we have with us a very special guest, Ajit Menon, who is CEO of PGIM India Mutual Fund. Now, Ajit brings decades of experience in helping investors make informed long term decisions. Ajit, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kshitij, and it's a pleasure to be here on the show with you.
Thank you so much for taking the time out. And Ajit, well, most people in their 30s or even 40s tend to push retirement planning to let's say the back burner, saying things are like that's too far away to worry about now. Probably at this point in time. Why do you believe that mindset is risky and why is it critical to start early?
So, Kshitij, I would probably first say that this mindset about delaying things that are too far in the future is a human condition. And this is not just applicable to us in India, but it's applicable literally to people all over the world. And therefore,
Absolutely.
retirement is a subject of interest and importance all across the world and not just in India. What makes it more important in India, of course, is that we don't have the kind of social security systems that
True.
many other developed countries have for their
Mm,
people. Therefore, I would say that makes it important for people to sort of, they're on their own and when they come to plan for this. And, just for a moment, I don't want to nerd this too much, but
uh,
just from a biological perspective, risk as we see it and risk as we deal with it as humans are things that we can actually see, touch, feel, or hear. And
Absolutely.
because things like long-term retirement and climate change are things that we cannot actually immediately touch, see, or feel, it
Right.
becomes extremely difficult for humans to plan for it and it requires help. The more important, as we get into the simple facts of why this is so important to start early, is obviously
Mm,
the cost of delay. And, for a 30-year-old who wants to retire at 60 with a
mm,
corpus of, let's say, 2 crores, and
right.
if he has somebody in the family who's at 40, also wants to retire at 60 and with a
Yeah.
corpus of 2 crores, or if there's an elder brother at 50 also wants to retire at 60 with a corpus of 2 crore, the investment that they
Right.
would need to do to get to that 2 crore number for the
Mm,
30-year-old, it's just about 5,500 rupees or so. For
right.
the 40-year-old, that gets
Mm,
to a little over 20,000. And for
right.
the 50-year-old, it starts to become more than 85,000 per month.
Right.
So that makes, that's the cost of delay. And therefore, the earlier one starts, really the
Uh,
advantage is that you can live your life and make sure that, there's
mhm.
something that's prioritized towards retirement.
Well, you've said the golden thumb rule there that the cost of delay or cost of delaying retirement planning is something which everyone should take note of. And, we often hear about retiring rich and something which has become an Instagram reel, you could say that, it's very much trending at this point in time. But yes, these are serious questions. So we hear about retiring rich or retiring early, but what does a comfortable retirement really mean in practical terms?
I
Yeah.
would probably say that when I talk to investors, I do tell them that so much of our life is connected. And
Yeah.
therefore, if you're really thinking about comfortable retirement, I think
Mm,
one of
mm,
the first principles that you should be working on is your health more than even your wealth. Because
exactly.
what really can upset your corpuses, your plans, your
Mm,
well-being is health. And we all know it. A very close second is what's the purpose that
exactly.
you see yourself doing into
Mm,
your later years. For some reason, because we get anchored in the experiences of our elders, the
mm,
concept of retirement seems to be to reach a certain age and then do nothing. I think, therefore, the most important thing, which is difficult to do, I'd accept, but is to
mm,
visualize and also to plan what would I see myself doing
right.
into my retiring years, whether you want to retire at 40 or whether you want to retire at 60. And I think keeping yourself purposeful
Mm.
has a very big advantage, which is that your mental health, because you
Right.
have purpose,
Sure.
reflects immediately on your physical health. And
Mm.
all you're trying to do is be better than the average retiree. You've got it if you can solve for these two. So, and there's so much psychology in this. I would say that as
Right.
PGIM, we are the only asset manager who does research with NIQ
Mm.
Nielsen on retirement readiness. And we do find that people who have a plan and a purpose of what they will do following their passions for the rest of their life,
Right.
they are much more ready for retirement.
Right.
And therefore, professionals actually don't struggle as much as people in conventional jobs, so to
Yeah.
speak. And we've also found that people actually plan only for
Uh,
happy goals. A child's
Absolutely.
education and a child's marriage and buying a
Yeah.
house and buying a car and starting a business and going abroad is all happy
Yeah.
goals. Somehow,
Absolutely.
retirement for a lot of people, especially in service, is not a
Yeah.
happy. So making it
Right.
happy is the first principle. And what
Right.
we suggest to people is
Mm.
words have a lot of power. Think of it as
Mm.
financial freedom, not retirement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let me also get your perspective. There's a lot of talk about this 4% rule, withdraw 4% a year in retirement. Does
Mhm.
that still work in the Indian context today?
A little history here, Kshitij, is that a gentleman called William Bengen in the US tended to
Hmm.
do this research which brought about the 4% rule, inflation
Okay.
adjusted then for retirement years. And the advantage that the advanced markets have is of data, right?
Mm.
They've had data for over 100 years for somebody
Okay.
like William Bengen to
Mm.
use that data to do analysis about 30-year rolling data points to see how does a 30-year retirement look like and what kind of withdrawal rates would you do with the
Sure.
kind of market rates you have. Given that our stock markets are young, we have pretty much a
Mm.
45 to 48-year sort of history. So it's
Mm.
very difficult to analyze the data to say what would be appropriate. And the 4% rule looks like sometimes it'll hold up, but the safer number is somewhere between 3 and 3.5 as a
Okay.
withdrawal rule, as far as India
Mm.
is concerned. I think as a thumb rule,
Yeah.
one needs to remember that, and it's not so easy to do, but just for simplicity's sake, whatever is
Yeah.
the return on your portfolio and
Okay.
whatever is the inflation of your household, there needs
Mm.
to be a positive difference between the two, which is called the real return. If you
Sure.
are earning 10% on a portfolio and your inflation in your house is 6, then the
Right.
real return you're earning is 4, and you
Yeah.
should ideally keep your withdrawal rate to the real rate of return. And
Ah.
that can potentially make sure that you don't dip into your capital.
Right.
So that's one way of looking at it. Little
Mm.
complicated because you then need to try and do that every year to say, hey, has something
Mm.
changed? Hopefully, as people get into their later years, the kids are educated, they're on their
Yeah.
own.
Mm.
And if you've taken care of your health, hopefully you don't have other dependencies,
Sure.
which most people do have. Then you want
Mm.
to have a fixed number to make it more easy. Then that becomes a conservative number like 3 to 3.5. I would say that that's the way
Mm.
to approach it.
Also, Ajit, is equity, yes, we talk a lot about equity, but yes, is equity still the best vehicle for building a retirement corpus, especially for young investors? Or should it be a mix with debt or other, asset classes that we have?
So the hard answer has to be no, that equity is not, you can't have a
Mm.
100% equity portfolio
Right.
into your retiring years. However, if you're in your accumulation stage, as you asked, Kshitij, for young people,
Mm.
would
Mm.
equity be a great place to accumulate rather than trying to mix up your assets?
Mm.
That can be a yes or a no. And the reason I
Okay.
say the yes or the no is because for the accumulation stage, since you have a longer time frame to accumulate assets, a
Mm.
good diversified equity fund can potentially be a great answer. But
Right.
the danger that I think that one should simply keep in mind is a commonsensical danger that never buy something expensive, right?
Okay.
Whether you're going into the mall, you're buying your favorite product, you'd love to look for a discount. Whether you're
Right.
buying real estate or gold, you would
Uh,
love to get it at a price of your choice. Somehow our attraction to equity starts when the markets are booming, and that's
right. Right.
expensive. So if somebody said, hey, cut all the jargon, just give me a
Right.
simple fill it, shut it product that I can do even as a young person. I'm personally biased towards the balanced advantage fund category in mutual funds because
Sure.
it has an inherent formula that automatically reduces equity when equity is expensive
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
increases equity when it's at a discount.
Let me also get your perspective, and uh, that's a very crucial question coming in, and I'm sure our viewers would want to know that SIPs have become the go-to investment tool. You could say that. Can a disciplined SIP really help someone retire with, say, let's say, 5 crores in 30 years?
Well, if you just did the math around it at a 12% return, if somebody were putting in a 15,000 rupee SIP maybe every month in a disciplined fashion at that
Okay.
12% return, you should end up with a corpus of around 5 crores. So, but Kshitij, my personal view is that, the whole world, as we in the financial services, we talk about these calculators, they tend to drive anxiety up when you see these big numbers. And my
Yeah.
real, recommendation to people is, hey, you don't need to be anxious about this because
Sure.
that anxiety is actually coming from the fact that you want that corpus
Hmm.
believing that that's all the money you will have when you retire. If you
Right.
just turn the narrative to say, you know what, I'm right now in a 2 lakh salary per month job. But
Hmm.
hey, when I retire, I don't think I'm going to have 5 crore, but I'm not going to stop working. And I think
Yes.
I'm going to be a fitness instructor. That's my passion. Or I'm going
Hmm.
to get into pet grooming because I love pets. Or
Hmm.
that I have a great voice and I'm going to, be there for voiceovers and make some money and whatever. And even
Hmm.
if that money is 20, 25,000 rupees a month, which you're
Right.
putting away into a disciplined SIP for, say, 10 or 15 years that you're following this passion, you will probably not even run out of money. You won't be dependent on your kids.
In fact, you've given a whole new dimension to a lot of people because yes, with the current the setup that we have in terms of social media and everything, if you have something which if you have a skill, then yes, you can show it to people and you can leverage out of it.
We did a 50 gig report, which is on our website, 50
Okay.
different hobbies that people have monetized. Where do you
Ah.
do it from? If there is a certificate required, let's say to be a yoga instructor, where do you get it from? How much will it
Okay.
cost? So
Nice.
we sort of looked at 50 different hobbies and we sort of made a report on that. Maybe you can link that up at some point. But
Right.
yes, the biggest risk of retirement is the concentration risk that money
Mm.
comes from just one skill all your life.
Right.
And if you have two
Nice.
skills, you are
Ah.
resilient.
Absolutely. In the conversation, Ajit, we've talked about younger population or people who are starting early. But for those in their late 40s or let's say early 50s who feel that they've started too late, what's the catch-up strategy? And is it too late or just needs more effort?
But if you're in the 50s and you can spare only 15,000 rupees per month, then you will
Hmm.
have to have a starting corpus of at least about 50 lakhs in the bank that is also growing at the same rate to get you
Ah,
that same corpus. So as you
right.
start older, you've got to make some of your existing
Hmm.
assets to work. I think in India, many people just about think that if I have a second home or something where rent is coming from, that might probably help. Use your existing assets. If you're starting late, is one aspect. And as
Okay.
I mentioned, I do think that you then have to also think about at whatever age you may be, but you didn't have to think about is there other forms of monetizing something at home and for a household to
Hmm.
survive financially in a much better sense. Many a time, the woman of the house is far more talented, but probably is not
Yes.
monetizing her skills of being able to teach children or do
Ah.
organic farming or do whatever it is, or bake or make pickles and sell it in the local community to make money. The whole
Hmm.
point being, even a 10,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 or 15,000 rupee extra income that you can save into a good diversified product can be
Hmm.
a great substitute over a period of time with the little corpus that you have had. So you don't have to be anxious about it.
Absolutely. And there's one other aspect we did touch upon in the conversation that balancing children's education and your retirement fund is a huge emotional dilemma for
Mhm.
Indian parents. So how do you recommend handling this? Hmm.
The golden rule here, Kshitij, remember that all of your financial goals in life, children's education especially, or buying a
Hmm.
house or car or starting a business, you can get a loan for all of them. The only financial goal of your life for which you don't get a conventional loan is retirement.
Uh, Retirement, right?
And therefore, when you start investing and worry so much about your kid's education, please do.
Uh,
But you could end up with a kid who is so smart that she might get into Harvard, and then your
right.
costs are going to escalate. But you could fill the gap with an education loan,
Mm,
right? You're going to buy a house, you want to buy a good 3 bedroom or a 2 bedroom house. And by the time you're getting to that, you guys see a nice little property, which is 3.5 bedroom or a four
yeah.
bedroom, and you want to switch. You can take a home loan to cover the gap. You want to upgrade your car, you can get a car loan. You
Mm,
want a loan for retirement, there's no such thing.
mm.
So as you start your investing journey, apart from making sure you have all your health and life insurances and your emergency fund, I think the first priority is break up that money that you're saving, put some little bit away for your retirement goal.
Well said there, Ajit. And let's also talk about another asset class, which is glittery. Do you believe gold, global equity, or REIT have a place in retirement portfolio, or should investors stick to the basics?
I do think that gold has a place in every portfolio,
Mm,
given the volatility we are seeing around the world and
right.
the newspaper headlines every day that
Mm,
when we pick them up, which sort of leads itself to more anxiety about the future. I
right.
think one safe way is to make sure that you have some allocation to gold. Very difficult to say, should that be 5% or 10 or
Ah,
15%? It's for everybody
mm,
to sort of think through what they would like. A lot of people, however, think about buying gold jewelry, and I don't think that's a great idea because a lot of the making charges that go away in that it does
right.
not get you the kind of return when you want to sell it. And of course, there are taxes as well. But
Yeah.
having gold in digital form through gold ETFs, digital gold or gold bonds, or simple gold coins or bars that you might invest into,
Sure.
maybe up to about 5% of your portfolio. I have
Mm,
about 2.5% of my
okay.
portfolio currently in gold.
Mm, mm,
And that's because as I have created a financial corpus, as
mm,
I have progressed, I have increased or decreased some of the other asset classes. Like I reduced
okay.
real estate to get into financial assets and some of the real assets too.
Right. Right.
And my gold is more, like I said, in the form of coins or something that I can keep in a bank locker and I can
Sure.
invest into it regularly. So I think that's
Mm,
definitely helpful. And the reason for it is that it'll behave differently in
mm.
times of risk. And it's always good to have that little insurance in your portfolio.
Absolutely. And yes, you've given us a lot of thumb rules, but finally, if you had to give just one golden rule for retirement planning, what would that be?
Well, I think for me, that, sort of absolute golden thumb rule, as far as retirement would be, I would say is get a trusted advisor, right? Because,
Absolutely.
for the simple reason that since we all know commonsensically there's so much psychology, it's our money. We are so biased with our own money that
Sure.
fear and greed as emotions tend to play in all the decision making we do. And the best experts who can advise us as scientists on human behavior will tell you that the advantage of a financial advisor is because he's in a
Mm.
different emotional state than you. So he or she
Ah,
can think
exactly.
objectively about your goals rather than being driven by fear and greed, which you will because it's your personal money. And of course, I personally now have developed this recommendation to people about having a second skill, right?
Ah,
A second
very
skill
good.
that you can monetize. Don't worry about whether you're monetizing it with just 5,000 or 10,000 rupees a month,
Sure.
but have a secondary skill that you can monetize and work on your passion because then you'll get up in the morning and look forward to it rather than getting up in the morning in your job and hating the fact that you're going to see your boss's face again. And so you don't like it. You want to
Right.
retire quickly, right? So do something that you love.
Well, actually, I'm sure that was a power packed conversation. Thank you so much for your time, Ajit, for sharing your insights
My
and
pleasure.
making retirement planning sound less daunting and a lot more doable. You could say that. Well, to our listeners, remember, it's never too late or too early to start. The key is to start, whether you are 30, whether you're 40, or whether you're 60 years old. Just start with it. And well, this is the golden thumb rule. And I'm Shudha Janan. Until next time, invest wisely and stay financially free. Thank you so much for your time, Ajay. Lovely conversation.
Thank you, Shudich. My pleasure.